your hands together and welcome to the stage, first up, the wonderful Gwendolyn Christie, Dechen Lackman, Tramell Tillman, Zach Cherry, Britt Lauer, Adam Scott, Dan Erickson, and Mr. Ben Stiller. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Congratulations on this extraordinary. It looked so great on the big screen in here as well. It's so great to show it in theatre. It's wonderful.
So much fun to watch it. You know, we sort of always imagine it like a movie anyway, so it was really fun.
Yeah, it's so cinematic. Dan, I'm going to start with you if that's all right, please, sir.
All right.
And I'm sure a lot of people in this room, what was the catalyst to this idea? Where did it come from? What story did you want to tell? And why did you want to tell it?
Well, I had this experience that I think is pretty unique to me, which is that I was working a job I hated, and found myself walking in. This was I've said this a number of times, but it was a door factory, and I was working in a little office cataloging hinges and deadbolts and other door pieces. And I found myself walking in one day and thought, I don't want to do this anymore. And if I have to go in today, I would prefer to just skip ahead to the 8 hours and disassociate. And then the whole thing just kind of came from that.
Whole thing came from that. It's this extraordinary, layered kind of production with these fantastic characters that we all love. In terms of the roadmap, though, that you set out in your head, in terms of what you wanted, where you saw this story going, so interested in terms of what that roadmap was and how many kind of rogue little roads have taken you on different journeys throughout that path.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is that as I thought about the idea, and especially once Ben came on, we wanted to be sure that it was about more than just this kind of idea that we're different people at work and versus at home, or that we don't like work. And what we realized is that the show is very much about sort of identity and who we are at our core. And if we would be the same people without our memories, if we had existed in a, grown up or lived in a totally different scenario, and then also just the way that in a corporate setting we can have our humanity sort of diminished, and in some cases kind of willingly diminish our own humanity so that we can fit into that setting and what the dangers are of that.
Ben, what was the appeal for you when you first spoke and met with Dan about being involved in the way that you are specifically with the show?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great script. It was, it came through to our production company as a spec script, and you don't really read that many things that just come in out of the blue and go, oh my God, this is great. Sometimes though, like when it's a spec script, you go, oh, it's a spec script. Why isn't anybody making this? So that was the first thing I asked Jackie Cohn, who's at our company, who read it and loved it. And she said, I don't know what's going on. We should meet with Dan. And I think you took a break from working DoorDash or something.
Yeah. I'd gone from the door factory to DoorDash.
It's a bit like
Common
Screwfix
theme.
here. We've got a place called Screwfix in the UK.
Screwfix.
Yeah, it sounds kind of similar.
I like Screwfix better.
Yeah, that's better.
Hinges and deadbolts, Screwfix. Severance.
Do they fix things with screws, or do they fix your screws?
Both. It's whatever you go in with, Adam. They're there to help whatever the screw is
It's
that
kind
needs
of like a
fixed.
Home Depot, but they deliver.
Wow. They're all getting the shout-outs today.
Nice.
It's amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Brought to you by
Screwfix.
B&Q and Homebase.
Anyway, so no, it was just, it had so much in it tonally. It had this humor in it in the first episode, which has changed a little bit from what, it was in the original script. But this also, I think there was just so many different things going on in it. What Dan talked about, there's also just the aspect of, what Mark is going through, the loss that he's going through and grief. And I think, losing someone and death, and how do you reconcile that? And then, I think that became an important theme in the show because it's about pain and sort of the idea of, how do you stop yourself from feeling pain? And then the sort of question of like, should we stop ourselves from feeling pain? How do you deaden pain? You can't suppress. If you suppress it, then it's still there somewhere. Mm-hmm. And so that all those elements to it are I think were what interested me. But it was just like so unique tonally, and it got me excited thinking about it. Just like, and I wanted to connect with Dan on it, and then we had that was what, like I don't know, like 8 years ago or something.
Wow.
This was
Seven,
early
eight,
1991, I think.
Dan was 8. Yeah, and then it was like a long process. Apple didn't even exist. I think when Apple TV Plus didn't
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah, Apple existed.
Yeah.
Adam, congratulations on this character over these 2 seasons that we've watched. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that idea that these 2 versions of this one man and playing that, but then also playing how those 2 versions grow and change and develop and learn things about each other themselves. There's so many kind of fine details that you have to really walk a tightrope with in terms of what they're telling each other, what they're telling us as audience, what they're telling other characters. How do you play something like that?
Yeah, I think that was one of the many things that appealed to me when Ben called me in like January of 2017 and told me the like 3-sentence kind of pitch of what the show is, and I was immediately hooked. I didn't read a script for another year or so, but just the idea of it, I couldn't shake. I couldn't get out of my head. It was almost like one of those ideas that's so good you can't believe someone hadn't already done it. It's just so simple and perfect and good. And then I read the script and Dan had fleshed it all out with all these incredible characters and arcs and stuff. And yeah, so for Mark, both the innie and the outie, they're both going through different things, and obviously, but I think that particularly in season 2, the interesting thing was they kind of start out with similar interests, and innie Mark is on board with outie Mark and what he needs, and he almost wants to make sure that Gemma gets out, almost as a need that he feels for his outie. He feels entirely for his outie, and it kind of feels almost subservient, almost like I need to do this for him. But then as the season goes on, and the innies in season 2, we keep saying it's almost like they're going through adolescence of some sort, and like their teenage years, their rebellious years, and so their interests start to diverge a bit as the season goes on, and that sort of sets them on a bit of a collision course. And I just thought that was a fascinating direction to go.
And in particular, in this season, when we see that incredible scene in the episode where you're playing against the innies, that scene with the innie versus the outie, and just in terms of how your state of mind as an actor in terms of trying to play those 2 characters, having that conversation with each other. What was the kind of reality of shooting that and how you did that?
Well, by far, it was the most difficult actor I've ever worked with. I now know what all of my lovely co-stars have been dealing with for 5 years.
Which one?
They're both impossible.
It was rough.
You refused to do off camera for yourself.
I wouldn't. No,
I'm
I
glad
wouldn't
that
make eye
I've moved
contact.
down the rankings of most difficult actor.
That's right. That's right. I supplanted Zach. Yeah, it was very challenging, but really fun. And I just know how lucky I am that I had Dan and Bo Williman and Mark Friedman working on this scene as writers, and Ben directing, and Ben and Jeff editing. I mean, it was a real team effort, and it was a big steep climb and a challenge, but it was super fun.
Yeah, the editing on that, Ben, is extraordinary.
Yeah, that's Jeff Richmond, our editor, who's edited all the episodes along with a few other editors. And the only thing I'd say about that scene is, as when we started putting it together, I was concerned at the beginning, this is like, a long scene. I knew Adam had done a great job, but just for an audience, it's a lot to watch. And but every time we would watch it from the beginning, Jeff and I would always get drawn into what was the scene, what was being said. And I think that what felt to me like I was like, all right, if I'm getting drawn into this, hopefully the audience will too. But I think it's similar to maybe the first season's finale, where there are a lot of threads that come together for the audience, which is why I think it can be it's satisfying for a lot of people as a finale for the first season. I think in the same way, the writing of what the situation that Dan created, and it leads to this point where you really want to see these 2 people talk to each other.
Yeah. Brett, I just love watching you play these characters. It's just absolutely kind of, and your kind of empathy and sympathy shifts so much, kind of, with them, with her. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about kind of getting to that point where you can't give too much away to an audience, but then also for you reading a script, do you always get the entire season on script, or do you want to know kind of, that journey, or do you kind of stay in that moment as to where the character is at that time for what you're about to shoot? Sorry, that was about 25 questions in there. Sorry, I'm literally just like
Yes.
spewing in your face questions.
I guess in this moment, I'm thinking about season 1 and meeting Helly R in Dan's pilot when I read it for the first time, and just falling in love with her and how she moves through the world. And then flash forwarding to the first time we see Helena speaking to Helly and telling her that she's not a person and that she has no right to make a decision. And it's this moment where you realize these are two parts of the same person waging a war inside of herself. And that war continues in season 2. But I think they start to kind of, like Adam's characters, start to learn, and all of the innies and outies start to learn a little bit more about each other through having literally stepped into each other's shoes. And that was a really fun 5D chess game to get to play that Dan wrote.
What's her motivation? Do you
Say
think?
again?
What's her motivation?
Which one?
Both.
Well, there are so many, but I think there's a longing for connection for the innies and the outies. I think I learned a lot about Helena this season and how isolated she is within the same company, within this family, and so these two parts of the same person are trapped, but in really different ways.
Yeah. Zach, Dylan kind of, I love how he became a bit of a hero in this season. I kind of love that strength that we kind of see really develop in him, particularly on the outie, the innie, on both of them, really. At some points, they both kind of like find strength in whatever situation they're thrown at. Where is he finding that strength from, do you think?
I don't know. I should say, I mentioned to her earlier, I'm the most jet lagged I've ever been in my life.
I'm here for you.
This will be stream of consciousness.
We can answer your questions for you.
Yeah, so
Not
pretty
yet.
much whatever Ben was about to say. No, I mean, I think a lot of it comes from connection, like Britt was saying.
Yeah.
The innie, especially in season 1, he starts off kind of a little selfish, and he's not that close to the people in the office. He's a little antagonistic. And then we watch him make these meaningful connections over the course of season 1. And then in season 2, he gets this completely different type of connection that kind of takes him away from them. But then at the end of the season, he's kind of brought back to them via his connection to his family and everything. So I think it really is just from his connection to others.
I also like kind of how he's gone from being so irate and kind of fearful of the different departments, and now he's kind of craving them in a way as well, in terms of, it's kind of like that, it's that connection, I guess, in a way as well.
Yeah, I think he's learned that his life is better with people like on his team.
Trammell, the maraca, excellent choice. I mean, I could just watch 10 episodes of you dancing and just, choreography and merriment. It's just, we all need more of that in life. But what a fascinating character. In terms of what I love about watching you play him is that there are moments where we see a little crack. There are moments where we think suddenly, oh, he's gonna turn. He's on their side, and then you go, shit, he's really not. He's gone completely the other way. How much fun do you have with that in terms of that kind of stoic, physical kind of presence that gets to let loose every now and again, that gets to kind of tease everybody in the way that you do?
There's a weight that Milchek carries daily, and it's fun as an actor to step into it, but it's tiring after 12, 14 hours, But what's so invigorating about this character is that this man, I see him as a bit of a clown, you know? Like, he has this task of keeping everyone else on task, and he fails every single time. But damn it, he keeps going. He just keeps showing up, you know? And I really admire that tenacity. Really do.
Totally. Me too.
He doesn't like being an actor. Yeah. Yeah.
Could you mind talking a little bit about that, the scene, you know, where we choreographed Merriman, and am I right in thinking that you surprised them all with having disco lights, that you guys didn't know there was going to be disco lights flashing?
On the first season, for the music dance experience, we tried to keep it a secret from everybody. You know,
when we're like, whoa, we are not acting.
Total
That was
awe.
real. That was real.
Why?
I was not impressed.
You know, you talk about Tramel's dancing, but Adam's dancing is pretty amazing too.
It's very
Thank you,
specific.
Ben.
Do we have choreographers involved, or
Yes,
is this
it
just
is very
purely
specific.
from your soul?
Oh, I conceived that all on my own.
Yeah. All the choreographers quit the second he did that. They
I
said,
walked in
we
and
will
they're
not be a part of this.
The day Adam discovered his hips.
Yep.
But that gorgeous scene in, you know, that episode with the band with the majorettes, and I mean, that's just, it's extraordinary.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
so powerful.
Yeah, it was you know, just an out of the blue idea that we thought would, you know, make sense for how they might want to take it over the top for completing the 100, you know, Hold Harbor's an important file. And, you know, Tramel just has this ability to dance that I do not, and most people do not. But he really just kind of like, I don't know, like, how did you, because you got with our band sort of director,
Yeah.
but and then you just kind of, how did that happen?
Yeah, so, you know, he taught me the basics. He taught me how to direct, right? So I wanted to make sure that Milchick knew what he was doing. So that was part of it. But then the next part, that next song, you know, that was really a collaborative moment of how Milchick can infuse another part of himself into this. You know, we get to see a lot of his joy and a lot of his frivolity, you know, when you see the ballad of Gunnell and Ambrose, and he just lets loose, you know, and he's having a great time, and then Helly comes in and takes his phone and locks him in a bathroom. So it's just, again, fails.
I just want to see what he's doing outside of work, really.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Deechin, this is such a beautiful performance, you know, this character, and particularly where we get to, you know, with that episode where we get to see what she's going through and what her kind of existence is, and all those kind of different scenarios, and they know her because all those scenarios have a connection to Gemma in some way, shape, or form, her story. How was that for you, kind of having to take that character through all those kind of scenarios, you know, kind of almost like little short films, each one of them, really?
Just one step at a time with amazing leadership and an incredible crew. I mean, Gwendolyn, you talked about it in LA, just the attention to detail that went into designing the space and the character and the story of the hair and the costumes and making her feel so lived in. It felt like such a collaborative experience. And, you know, I don't know if I could have done it without like such a talented crew and committed, dedicated group of people. You just couldn't, you know, wish to work with better ones, really. But it was exciting for me to finally be in that space. I felt like I'd been waiting so long on the testing floor to get onto set and work with all these remarkable people. It was scary, but I had incredible guidance.
And did you talk to Dan and Ben about what those kind of pull-throughs were for Gemma to the scenario that she finds herself in?
Dan and Mark and everyone were always so open to sort of talking through the beats. And what was really fun, which you don't always get to do, I'm sure everyone can confirm, is in television, is we got to go to the house and we got to rehearse the scenes, and even all the little rooms with a wonderful actor, Robbie Benson, who plays Dr. Mauer. We got to rehearse, and in those rehearsals, you get to fine tune those moments, which you don't always get the opportunity to do. And I think it was so valuable.
Is there ever a moment, Ben and Dan, where your cast kind of come to you with a question and you go, can't tell you? Do you know what I mean? In terms of, because it's where the character maybe is going, or it's something that they don't need to have information to yet.
I think that generally speaking, I like to give actors information if they ask for it, because each actor has a slightly different process in terms of how much they want to know, and especially if it's something the character wouldn't know at that moment. So I think that if any actor has ever come up to me and asked me for a piece of information, I say I know it, but I don't want to tell you. I think that I'm lying. I think that's an instance where I just don't know the answer and won't admit it.
Yeah. Gwendolyn, oh my God, it's brilliant watching you in this show. I mean, she's like one cross Heidi, one cross like Working Girl, or one cross Michael Douglas in Falling Down or something. It's brilliant. It's just so many.
Wow.
It's so fantastic.
Wow.
But it's great. But that's what that
dream combo.
It's, I mean, what's her outie like? It's just so many questions. Talk to me a little bit about, I mean, I know you were a fan, and so just kind of coming in to inhabit this role, but also very much bring you and, your wonderful kind of capabilities to this character and bring her to life.
I was an absolutely enormous fan of the show. As soon as I saw it, it was one of those landmark moments, like when I saw Twin Peaks when I was 11 years old. And something is so original and singular, and it has such depth that it's entering your subconscious in a way you can't even comprehend and igniting your imagination. And so consequently, I assumed I would never be cast in it. And it was a real dream to become a part of the show. I've talked a lot about how the show was so exceptional to me that it made me angry that I wasn't part of it. So when I very fortunately received an email from Ben's producer asking if I'd be interested in being a part of the show, I sort of sank to my knees holding the phone aloft and weakly called out for aid to assist me in my enfeebled state. But it's just such an undeniably rich world, the likes of which we don't really see in television. And we don't really see it now, because what this is seized upon more than anything else, I think personally, is meaning and time. And so we start to really look at humanity in a way that's dismantled, because in our current society we do dismantle it, and because we do commodify it, and we do make it technological, and we measure it, and also we get this weird breath of the ephemeral coming through it. It's really unlike anything I've ever watched, and I have a very different experience as a viewer watching it to really anything else at all. So no doubt over the moon to be lucky enough to be in it, and was a huge fan of the goats. I was watching the show on my own, 11 a.m. Friday morning. That's when I would watch it. Make sure everyone's out of the house. The dogs, they have to be quiet, or they have to leave the room. And they don't want to leave the room because they too are fans of the show. Anyway, it was that moment of hearing the cry of the goats, something else occurred. And of course, me and my particular interest, that evokes the satanic and all sorts of, my part-time hobbies. But it felt so radical and humorous that I really wanted to be involved with the goats. And that opened up a portal in a way that really not many things have creatively for me in a long time, in terms of wanting to, I knew this had to be about a sensual experience. So about something that I wasn't really that familiar with, a relationship with the land and that invisible relationship with animals, and something that really matters, the degree of trauma where someone is compressed into only being really able to communicate with animals and not so much people, only a small group of people. And I love the idea of the destructive pressure of the corporate world deforming someone's character to the point that they're overtaken by they're transformed in a sort of animalistic way. And I'm fighting on screen again.
Kicking ass. Oh my God. Yeah.
But it was delightful because it was about a violent psychic emotion and telling the story in a very particular physical way. It's been nothing but a real honor and a privilege to be involved.
It's all the production design as well was just breathtaking. Even like that kind of weird contraption that the lamb's in that, you know, in that moment, it's kind of like, it's beautiful, but it's like, oh shit, that's just about to happen. And, you know, or even where, you know, the rolling hills in the room kind of thing with the lambs. And there's just so much detail in there. Dan, how do you write that kind of level of detail, you know, in terms of, we all sit on, you know, Reddit and loads of other websites after we've watched the show for days afterwards talking about, did you see that? 3 meant something, or, you know, did you see that in the box, on the crib, all that kind of stuff. There's so much detail in there. Where do you start with that? Are you kind of going, haha, I've got 10 layers here I want to write into the script, or is it the other way around?
Yeah, a lot of it comes from our great, you know, production team and designers and everybody. You know, there are things like the, you know, the images that you see on that goat holder thing, which I had nothing to do with. You know, that just sort of I saw that in the design phase, and I said, okay, yeah, no notes. You know. But stuff like that enriches the world. It's like you can look at that and you can read into it kind of what the ceremony is and how long it's existed and why they do it. And so much of the storytelling is done that way. But you know, I also just have a really intrinsic trust in Ben and in the other people who have been brought on to tell the visual side of the story. Because at this point, all of them just get it. They just get it so well, and it's you know, we like to have as much communication as we can, but I feel like 9 times out of 10, it's me just looking at it and going, "Yeah, you nailed it. That's that's it."
How do you decide what episode you want to direct?
Oh, you know, like going out like into the
favorites?
snow seemed like it would be fun. You know, doing the finale, I knew it would be fun to do. You know, I mean, I guess I just try to go for, you know, there's a logistical part of it too.
Yeah.
And it's always kind of trying to figure it out. And I usually feel like, oh, I probably bit off more than I could chew, but it's also so tasty. You know, like it's so, like this group of people and this experience, it's really, you know, been my job for the last, you know, 5 years. We've been working on it and I've loved it. So I try to like think about it in terms of like what can I handle, and also you know, like episode 8 with Patricia Arquette. I really love Patricia and thought that would be really fun to be able to work with her in that way. And then we have other, you know, Jessica Lee Gagne, I have to say, who directed episode 7 this season. The Deachin episode, the Gemma episode was so amazing. She's been our cinematographer. I've worked with her on other projects before. And, you know, everybody, it's what Dan was saying, everybody's so connected to this by this time because everybody's been on it that long that we really have like this collaborative thing where people will come in with ideas. Our prop master, production design, Jeremy Hindle, costume designer, Sarah Edwards, and our, you know, special effects guy, Doug Coleman, who like, you know, worked on, you know, creating the Kier statue to have it be a remote control and that, you know, I could control off camera, like fun things like that. There's so many of those things in the show that are, like Dan was saying, people bring them, and then we sort of like synthesize what, you know, what feels right in terms of those details. And then, you know, it's just like a you know, kind of everybody, you know, kind of jumps in. We also don't shoot the show episode by episode. We do block shooting where we shoot, like we'll go to Lumen, the building in New Jersey, and we'll shoot for like a week there and do maybe parts of 3 episodes and things like that. So it's kind of, we shoot over a course of months, and then so every director is always around for a long time too. And we had a great director this season, Sam Donovan, who's from here, and Uda Breshowitz, who just did great work. And yeah, and I just feel like so, fortunate that the cast of the show is so good. And I feel, this isn't answering your question, I'm just talking now. But
good.
I just wanted
That's
to
what
say,
we're here for. It's fine.
I just like that fight sequence, what's so great about it to me is that the emotion and the depth that are brought to it by the actors, so that last moment where you're holding, the gun on him, it's like I never in a million years imagined that being such an emotional moment. But this character, who we haven't seen since episode 3, has a whole life, and you read it in what's going on with her and with Dari and Adam and John Turturro, who's not here, who's working in New York, who just and Chris Walken, they bring so much emotional reality to this crazy reality that Dan has created that is rooted in real things, but it's hard to believe if you don't believe the actors. So that I feel like that's the key to what allows an audience to believe it.
Yeah. Just quickly about Patricia. That's a great episode. Where was that?
We went to Newfoundland, a town called Bonavista.
Did it just look like that? Did you have to do much?
We made it look a little worse than. I mean, Newfoundland in the winter is cold.
Felt it.
Yeah.
You were like putting a jacket on to watch the show.
Yeah, but it's actually a beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful place. We had a great time there.
We actually went there several years before and introduced ether to the community in order to make it authentic.
That's the emotional reality.
Wow.
You got to do it.
I've got so many questions that you probably can't and won't answer anyway, but like one of them is like, why is Cobell Mark's neighbor?
Yeah, I think that there's clearly a personal and or professional interest there.
Did you answer in it? I didn't think you would actually answer it. Amazing.
Well, it's a little bit of a non-answer, but it's the best I can give. Is that there's clearly some need for her to be watching him, whether it comes from within or from Lumen.
Yeah. Have you with when you went in to start filming season 2? Were all the episodes written?
We had not finished writing all the episodes when we shot this time. We had figured everything out, but there were we knew the plan, but there was some script work that we still had to get done.
Yeah, there's definitely as we go along, there's always adjustments that are happening, and I think that's important to leave room for that.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of having to adjust for what you're seeing as it's developing, and that's just an important part of the process, I think.
Yeah, I've said this in the scene where Mark is talking to himself. There are scenes, there are shots in that where I swear you can hear me typing and rewriting off screen. I was trying to be quiet.
I've got to mention the music and your incredible theme, Theodore Shapiro. What was did you know what you wanted it to sound like? Did you have an idea? Because it's kind of, you can't imagine the show without that.
No, we rely on the music heavily. I mean, there's a lot of score, and it's because it's like almost another character in the show. Teddy Shapiro, that's all right, Shapiro. I never knew that until I met him, and then he corrected me. He and I go back to, I think I met him on Dodgeball.
Amazing.
And then we did a bunch of movies together over the years. And he's, I think, really brilliant composer, really amazing guy. Just a great filmmaker, too. He sees every cut, when Jeff and I will put a cut out to him. And I always, get great feedback from him. And he wrote, so we started prepping the show, the first season in 2019. And then the pandemic hit 6 weeks before we were supposed to start shooting. And then we pushed another 6 months, but continued working on the show. And he wrote a whole bunch of music in that time. So by the time we had started shooting the show, he had written the theme and the music before we'd shot a single scene. And then sometimes we'd play it on set, in the first few weeks when we were shooting, just to give everybody a vibe of the feeling, which I think really helped the actors and helped me too as we were sort of developing the tone of it. And then he's just so great in terms of he's really fast, and he'll make adjustments, and he writes suites. And like for episode 4, the Ortbo scene in the woods, he wrote a whole new theme for that. And then he'll give us these suites of music that then we'll edit in, and then when we have a locked cut, he'll then adjust and do things after that.
It's so great. And then the sound design as well, even the kind of the lift beeps and the kind of hidden meaning behind all that.
Jacob Ribikoff and Mark Shafalis, who are in New York and work at Goldcrest Sound, and they've been on the show the whole time, and they get every episode, and they just dig into it. And there's so many. Yeah, sound is such an important part of any project, and they also have been with it the whole time. So there's this kind of same collaboration where they'll come up with ideas and things. And there's actually like a moment in this episode with the Milchick and Egan comedy team thing, where it's like not going well, and like you hear like, and like we were looking for some like canned sort of like like hubbub, like ooh, that's not good, and we couldn't find anything, right? So Jacob actually like recorded himself going like, ooh, that's not, ooh, I don't know about that. Yeah, so his voice is in there.
What is it like for you guys when you are kind of outside of Lumen filming, whether it's the, the away day or things like that, when you're kind of removed from that kind of environment in the real world, so to speak? Is it weird? Is it lovely? What is that like for you as a cast,
It's usually cold.
Great snowsuits, though.
Yeah.
I could not stop talking about how great pants are.
Adam, what's it like for you?
Yeah, it's fun. It's nice to get out of the office because we shoot on these stages where it's just all hallways, and hallways. And then in the center is the MDR office with the green carpet and everything. But the hallways are always being moved and shifted around in a maze-like fashion, depending on what's being shot. So when you're trying to get to the office where we're usually shooting, you literally get lost almost every time. And there have been many instances where I have to just stop and just yell that I'm here and I need someone to come find me because I don't know how to get to set. And then you get there and it's fluorescent lights and the green carpet. And so when we get out every couple months, we get out to go shoot, like Ben was saying, we go shoot at the big building for a couple of weeks, or we go upstate and shoot some stuff. It's just nice to get out and breathe the fresh air and see the sky.
It's funny, when we were shooting the marching band thing, we discovered a new way into the bathroom. Because the bathroom, like at MDR, is like there, but like you have to take all the hallways to get there.
That's right.
But then,
Shortcut.
like somebody discovered a shortcut, and I realized like the bathroom, like you could get in the bathroom through a stall.
That's right.
Like they took away one of the walls in the stall, and it was like right next to the entrance to the stage. And I was like, oh my god, we've been shooting this for 5 years, and this has been so close.
Game
for
changer.
5 years.
Game
and every
changer.
time, right?
We went all the way around.
We got scooters. I mean, we got scooters.
Then we finished the show in a week after that.
It was just right at the end.
All the walking time was cut down.
The one thing before, a couple more questions, the tone of the show is so, there's so many things that are unique about the show, and the tone of it as well, because it kind of surprises you in terms of where one conversation might end. You think it's going one way and it kind of takes a slightly different tone towards the end of it. And that starts in the writing, Dan, but then I imagine that develops through shooting, performances and editing as well. Does it shift a lot tonally?
Yeah, I mean, I've always sort of been a fan of that mix of light and dark, going back to, there's stuff like Brazil or Monty Python, or like this movie LA Story that I love, where it's like you can go between something being really heartbreakingly earnest and sort of feels like it's in our world, to suddenly going into a slightly different version of reality where the rules of logic are a little bit different. And, we try to keep things a little bit more consistent on this show, but we have created our own kind of internal logic, especially on the indie floor, because it's this insular world. And I've just always been drawn to that, and I was drawn to the willingness that Ben had to sort of expand beyond the normal bounds of genre and do something that was a little bit of a mix of flavors that we weren't necessarily used to and hadn't seen before.
Yeah, and I think one of the scenes I think that really kind of hits hard as well with that. I mean, there's a lot, you know, with Gemma and Mark's kind of story as well, but I think with Milchick, that moment where he's given the painting, you know, and that is kind of like, it's a really kind of powerful scene, and we kind of see a different side to him as a character, and not necessarily through dialogue, but through your performance and your kind of reaction to that moment as well. Must be lovely as an actor to kind of, you know, if you think about that side of things, and then the performance, song and dance element to it as well, and everything in between that this role gives you the opportunity to explore.
Yeah, no, it's complicated, you know. The painting scene was a big move on the part of the show. And, you know, I always feel that we were taking a risk by introducing the topic of race in this show and what it means specifically for Natalie and for Milchick, and how we are going to carry that story forward. And what does that mean, you know, in the world of leadership? And how does Milchick respond to this moving? And, you know, as an actor, I'm inclined to think that everything that happens after episode 3, that moment where he gets those paintings, it shapes how he responds to every single circumstance. You know, I think that that's the moment of his awakening.
Yeah.
He's starting to see and learn.
Yeah, and it definitely informs that marching band scene.
Yeah. Brett, I want to talk to you about the end of this season, you know, in terms of these two characters and the choice that Mark makes, and the choice that she makes as well, to kind of to be there so that he kind of has to make a choice or decision. She's not asking him to, but her just being there kind of is a reminder that he has a choice to make, sort of thing as well. And just that, I don't know what the question is really, but it's more, I guess, as an actor, when we see you guys running off, what's that kind of, what are you trying to convey? What's going through her head? More so than Mark, I think, for me anyway. What's kind of really going through her head? Sorry, Adam.
You know, she's just been standing on the desk, remembering her friend Irving. And I think for everyone in MDR, that was they considered that a death. And so I think Helly runs to save her best friend and lets him make that choice. But she goes from thinking he's about to step through that door and cease to exist to then he's alive. And maybe we have a fighting chance with this rebellion. And the last moment she sees on the other side of the hallway is Gemma. And I think she has this great empathy for what's happening, and understanding that's a person who loves the same human that I love, just on the outside. And then running through the hallways, I think they're processing that together, and they're like wild horses.
Yeah.
Set free, but trapped.
For eternity. Season 3. What's happening? Have you written anything? You're
happening?
here, so the writer's room's not happening right now.
Exactly right. It's exactly right. We were in the writer's room.
Were you?
Yeah, we were. It's in LA. It's far away. But you shoot the show in New York, but Dan lives in LA. And yeah, it's been going for a few months, and you know, we just have our process every time, and it's always a process, but we're in it, and you know, just there will be a season 3.
Yeah.
And
is it just like lots of post-it notes on the wall with kind of different colors for different characters? And
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of strings. There's a lot of just like weird scrawls on the, you know, scratch marks on the wall.
Something about a turtle.
There's something about a turtle, which
What is
actually
that?
I don't actually
there's like a
know.
weird
They
thing
put that
about a
up with
turtle.
when I wasn't there. But yeah, no, it's what we're sort of trying to do is discuss this season and discuss where we want to go overall, and make sure that what we end up telling is a very cohesive story. And so it's we've always been very meticulous about it, and we continue to be. But we're having a real good time. I'll say that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here, but also just giving us something, as I think, Gwendolyn, you were saying that, just something that's so unique, but that makes us think as an audience, and you kind of see elements of yourself in different scenarios or people or situations, and it's just absolutely fantastic. So I can't wait for season 3. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.